will go ahead and get started. First of all, a big welcome to everyone. This is session 1 of 10 sessions of Getting Started with Action Research. As all of you know, this is a flipped learning course, and what we mean by that is that we will be sending you assignments on a weekly basis and asking you to watch some videos, to read some short chapters or some articles, and to respond to those by writing into your learning logs. The learning logs are a place for you to record what you think you are learning as you do your self-learning. And then in our online live sessions, you'll actually be sharing that learning with other people in the course. For today, we're just going to be doing some group discussions, and I'll tell you a little bit more in a moment about how we'll go about setting all of you up to do paired discussions. So first of all, today, I'd like to welcome all 7 of our participants. We have Wendy, Carmen, and Lucy, who are all from ACS Cobham. We have Dale, who is joining us quite late at night. You're 3 hours, Dale's 3 hours different from we are, so she's joining us from her home in Doha. And we have Sue and Helen and Mary joining us from Hillingdon. So welcome to all of you. Just a couple of quick housekeeping pieces. I'll do this housekeeping at the beginning of every session just to kind of remind you about how we're going to use the technology over the course of the afternoon. First of all, in just a moment, or whenever you have an opportunity to do that, I'd like you to turn off your webcam and to mute your microphone. And I know that at this point, all of you already have turned off your webcam, but I need you to also turn off your microphone on your control panel on the right. As you guys can imagine, both the audio and the video require bandwidth. And what we found in doing these courses in the past is that if we have everyone turn everything off and we selectively turn your audio or video on when we need it, that we can actually maintain a pretty smooth connection for everyone without any stops or interruptions. At any point in today's session, if you need to contact us, if you have a question, if you're having technical difficulties, if you'd like to say something, what we would like you to do is to type an asterisk into the chat box. The asterisk for this course will be the equivalent of raising your hand. That's how we know that you want to say something or you need to contact us. So again, anytime you need to contact us, please just type an asterisk into the chat box. I also want to make you aware that each of these sessions will be recorded and will be available to view afterward. We will edit out some of the long pauses, so if there are sessions where you have 10 minutes to do a paired discussion, we will edit that 10 minutes out of the recording so that you can simply listen to and watch the live recording when there's actually activity taking place. And again, we will do that every week. And so this week you can expect to find the recording of today's session in your email box. The link to it will be in your email box tomorrow sometime. A final housekeeping piece just in terms of software. At this point, all of you have successfully used GoToMeeting. GoToMeeting is the collaborative software that we're using to deliver the course. However, in the sessions 2 through 10, we're also going to be using offline technologies. When you're doing your paired discussions or your small group discussion, you are going to be using Skype. And so what we would like all of you to do in subsequent sessions is to bring along a Skype-enabled device that is separate from your laptop. So that might be an iPhone, it might be an iPad. Again, if you don't own those things personally, please talk to your technology person to use those things while you're doing the course. We're also going to ask you in the email to send us the copies or copy the information for your Skype IDs, and we will make that available to the people who you will be meeting with during your small group or paired discussions. One of the things that we like to do in the course is that we will pair you with people as the course goes on who have similar interests to you in terms of the research questions that they're asking. Sometimes we'll purposely pair you with people who are not from your campus so that you can meet other people who work for ACS who you may not have had the opportunity to meet and to get to know a little bit more about the work that they're doing. A quick review of GoToMeeting. I think that all of you have probably figured out all of these things already. The control panel buttons that we will be using most frequently are the audio button that looks like a microphone And each time you speak, we will ask you to turn your microphone on, and we will also turn your microphone on, and then we will have the connection for you to speak. Immediately following any time when you speak, we ask you to turn your microphone off again. And what that does is that it prevents any background noise or interference, which can result in kind of that awful feedback that you get in some of these online meeting softwares. So again, whenever you speak, we'll ask you to turn your microphone on, and whenever you're done speaking, we'll ask you to turn the microphone off. From time to time, we may use the video function, although again, because of limited bandwidth and the problems that that has the potential to cause in terms of interruption and stoppages, we won't do that very frequently. But when we do, you'll use the video button in the control panel to operate that. Whenever you would like to leave a typed message for an individual on the course or for everyone, you can use the chat box. And you will see in the drop-down menus that you can select whether you send that message to individuals or to everyone in the group. So you do have that option in the chat box. There'll also be times when we ask you to type things in the chat box as a response to a question in order just to get everyone's response in a rather faster way. And finally, the asterisk key again. Whenever you need to ask a question or get our attention, please type an asterisk into the chat box, and we will respond to you either in the chat box or we may do it verbally using the audio connection. All right, at this point, we want to know if you have any questions about using GoToMeeting. I know that a lot of you will have used GoToMeeting before. If you have a question that you would like to ask at this time, please just type an asterisk into the chat box and we will open your microphone. Okay, again, please know that if you have any questions about using GoToMeeting as we go through the course, please use the asterisk to get our attention and to ask a question. Oh, Dale has a question. So we're going to open Dale's microphone.
Dale, if you could unmute your microphone and speak to us.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My question's about responding to the learning logs. So what software do we use for that?
What I suggest that the learning logs are all Word documents. And what participants in the past have done is simply download or drag those to your desktop. And then my best advice is to fill them in electronically, although some people have simply taken them in sheets where there are multiple questions. They've spaced the questions and they have just handwritten them out. Whatever works best for you. We've tried to keep it as flexible and simple as possible, but right now they are offered as Word documents.
Right, and how do we share those? Do we email them to everybody, or is this just for us?
So everything that you write in the learning logs is for you. In this course, I'm not going to collect work and give you feedback on it. You're not required to share that work with other people in the group. There may be times when you want us to respond to something that you've worked on, or you may want someone else in the group to respond, and then it's completely at your discretion to send those materials to the other people. Again, please know that we are always here and willing to look at what you've done and to respond to it if you would like that. But if you'd like to have that more as a personal record of your learning, that really is the spirit with which it was designed.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions right now before we get started? That was a great question. All right, so to get us started today, what I would like to do is just kind of walk you through what we hope to talk about in the next 10 sessions. Each of our sessions is set up as an inquiry question, and the idea is that through your personal exploration of the resources that we provide and through the online discussion and follow-up, that you will develop responses to all of these questions that are meaningful and relevant to you in your role at your school. This week is session 1, and we're simply going to be asking this really big question: what is action research? In session 2, you are going to work through a series of activities to try to begin to articulate a research question. And of course, fundamental to a research question is identifying the problem that you're trying to solve. In session 3, we're going to begin introducing ways that you can use and search the popular, published and peer-reviewed literature to learn about what other people have to say about your research question. In session 4, we're going to kind of refine that a bit and look at how you're going to use that the research that you've done to inform your action research plan, so the plan for how you're actually going to carry out your action research. In session 5, we're going to talk a little bit about data collection methods. In section 6, we're going to look at the steps or the sequence of steps that are recommended for an action research project. In section 7, we're going to talk about validity and reliability, and specifically in terms of how to collect data and assess and analyze data in ways that are valid and reliable. Session 8 will be all about analyzing data. Session 9 will be about identifying or articulating the learning that has come out of that analysis. And session 10, what might come next. Oh, and also just to mention, this course is over 10 weeks, and we will take a break during the time when the UK campuses have their February break. We will not meet that week. I do want to clarify at this point that as part of this online course, that you're not required to complete an action research project. But what we hope, is that all of the work that you're doing in this course is in preparation for something that you might carry out as part of your professional growth plan, right? So we're not requiring you to do the research, but we're going to give you all the tools and guide you through all of the steps for designing an action research project. And again, if you choose something that is relevant to your practice and addresses a real question, what you'll actually have is a resource for something that you can take forward in your professional growth. Again, I mentioned earlier that you're also not required to submit any work for assessment. This is not an assessed course. You will get a certificate of participation at the end, but do know that we are always available to review things that you've done and give you feedback on anything that you'd like to have feedback on. All right, so let's go ahead and get started today. I said that the question that we were trying to address today is what is action research? And again, in preparation for today, you looked at a short video, you read a short case study, you may have read a chapter from the course text, which is called Improving Schools Through Action Research. Let me just clarify that in the past, we've used a range of text materials. And as we have refined the course and based on the feedback that we've had from other people, we have decided to focus on the book that we have sent to everyone. And again, if you don't have the book, please let us know. We have sent them through the post to all of your school addresses. So we're hoping that everyone has that book at this point. The book, this is the same book that is used in the Harvard Graduate School of Education Action Research course. Most of you know that this course and its contents were co-developed with staff members from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And in fact, they used this exact same course content to deliver their own professional development workshops to people outside Harvard. Specifically, they've been doing some recently through ECIS. So to kind of give you a flavor of how the software works and how we're going to be running kind of bigger group discussions, in just a moment, we are going to be opening up your microphones in sequence. So we'll start with Wendy and then go to Carmen and then Lucy, then Dale, then Sue, then Helen, then Mary. And we're going to ask you to introduce yourself. So again, tell us your name, tell us what campus and division you're in, maybe say a little bit about what your role is there. And if you want to pull out your learning log 1.1, where you recorded ideas about a definition for action research, if you want to share some of the elements of that definition that you developed for action research with the group. Again, we're going to do this one at a time. If you didn't have an opportunity to complete this task you'd like to pass, just tell us that you'd like to pass. But we will go ahead and begin with Wendy. So Wendy, if you would like to unmute your microphone and then just use the set of bullet points to structure your introduction. Hi, Wendy, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Wendy Bransey. I'm at Cobham. I'm a pre-kindergarten teacher. My definition of action research is it's a cyclical model of research that involves 3 distinct stages that focuses on reflect, act, evaluate. Action research can be used to address an issue or problem within the classroom setting that will ultimately enhance student learning. One model that I've used in the past is Richard Sager's model, and I quite like his definition, which is action research is a disciplined process of inquiry conducted by and for those taking the action. The primary reason for engaging in action research is to assist the actor in improving and or refining his or her actions. Yeah, so that's what I've come up with so far.
Great, Wendy. Thank you very much. Again, if you want to go ahead and turn your microphone off where you are, we'll turn it off here, and we will open up Carmen's microphone. Carmen, if you'd like to unmute yourself, please. Go ahead, Carmen.
Hello. Hello, I'm Carmen Georgescu Spears. I'm teaching at ACS Cobham. I'm a PE teacher and a first aid teacher. And my definition of action research is not quite elaborated as Wendy's, but it's an up-spiraling research method that has as final objective improving the researcher's practice.
Great. Carmen, thank you very much for that. Again, if you will close your microphone, and we are going to open Lucy's microphone. Lucy, if you'd like to open your microphone.
Okay, Lucy.
Go ahead, Lucy.
Lucy, if you need to unmute your microphone. Lucy, if you just click on the microphone symbol in the pen oh, that's it. Go ahead.
Lucy Axel, High School Math in Cobham. It's my first year at Cobham, and my definition of action research is a very loose one because I haven't done all the homework. I've only seen a bit of the video. Apologies to all my colleagues and the presenters. But I see it as a cyclical, iterative process that can go on ad infinitum, but hopefully getting closer to the goal of modifying instruction for better learning by identifying a problem or a question, creating a plan of action, enacting the plan, reflecting and assessing the intervention, then either modifying the plan or redefining the problem or deciding that the process has ended, and hopefully that process takes you towards the final goal of that improved learning.
Great, Lucy. Thank you very much. Again, if you want to go ahead and close your microphone, we are going to open Dale's microphone. So Dale, when you're ready, if you'll open your microphone. Go ahead, Dale.
Hello, I'm Dale Taylor, and I'm at the Doha campus. I'm the middle and high school principal, and my definition of action research is a systematic inquiry into a question with the aim of improving practice and student learning. Apologies to all, I have the flu, so I can barely talk.
Dale, thank you very much for that. And again, if you'd like to close your microphone, and Sue, if you'd like to open your microphone, please. Go ahead, Sue.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sue Wakefield. I work as a technology coach at the Hillingdon campus, primarily in the lower school, but with the rest of the school as well. My reasons for wanting to do this is to work with colleagues across the other schools to work together to define to look at what we're doing with technology in the early years in particular, and I see that action research will give me the structure and the framework to enable that to happen and to give us a way to make sure that we are working towards an end goal that will be beneficial to our students. Is that okay, Ben?
That's
not from me.
Yeah.
I have Helen is on my computer, so I'm going to let her speak now. She only joined yesterday.
Hi, my name is Helen Street, and I'm at the Hillingdon campus, and I teach kindergarten. I only received my book and joined the course yesterday, so I haven't actually looked up about action research, but I am hoping that it will improve my practice and focus my development with my students.
Great. Helen, thank you very much.
Thank
And
Thank you.
finally, so Sue, if you want to close your microphone, we're going to open Mary's microphone. And Mary, if you could unmute your microphone, please. Thank you. Go ahead, Mary.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Mary O'Gorman. It's my first year to work here at ACS in Hillingdon. So, hi everyone. I teach sciences to grade 9 and 10 students, of each of biology, physics and chemistry. And I'm looking forward to finding out more about the topic. Similarly to Helen, I just joined yesterday, so I'm catching up with the reading and video work.
Great, Mary. Thank you very much. And by the way, I mean, I'm really glad Helen and Mary joined. Having a slightly bigger cohort is really going to enrich the course. So thank you to both of you. And if you need any help catching up, do please let us know. Just to kind of recap that, some of the words that I heard people use in describing their definitions of action research I think are really worth thinking about. Some of those key words. I heard disciplined. I heard spiraling, cyclical, iterative, those stages of plan, act, reflect, this idea of systematic inquiry, collaboration, framework, practice, and improving learning. Those words, I'm certain, could be strung together in some really elegant sentence to create an amazing definition, but even in their word form, they really offer, I think, a really good picture of what it is that we're about to spend the next 10 weeks thinking about, and not just thinking about, but thinking about what it means to our individual practices. Each week at the beginning of the session, I'm going to show you a very short, typically 5 to 7 minute film, which just recaps the content of what you looked at over this past week. Again, this first week's film is about definitions of action research. What we have found in the past is that this is one of the segments in the recorded version of the online session that people tend to go back to and look at the most. They might go back and look at it a second time or a third time, especially as we get into the content that's a little bit less familiar to them. So we're going to show this first week's session, and then we're going to go into another discussion. So again, this is our first week's content presentation. Hello, and welcome to session 1 of Getting Started with Action Research. This short video will briefly define action research and introduce the action research cycle. Whether you are a novice or have engaged in numerous action research cycles, this course will help you refine your practice and ultimately improve student learning. As you go through the course, I encourage you to look for and share information about action research that you find relevant to your context and practice. In addition, please take time to visit journals that specialize in action research in education. 3 that I can recommend are the Journal of Curriculum and Instruction, published online by East Carolina University in the United States. Network's online journal for teacher research, published online by the University of Wisconsin, also in the United States. And the Canadian Journal of Action Research, published online by Nipissing University in Ontario, Canada. These are all open access journals devoted to research in schools. Information about how to access these free journals online is provided in the Session 1 course guide, which you received to help you prepare for this online session. I also encourage you to share relevant resources with one another. Now, what is action research? The goal of action research is a positive change in everyday practice in one's own classroom or school. It is largely about encouraging teachers to be continuous learners and proactive change agents in their own classrooms. Action research is a methodology for incorporating formal, structured reflection into everyday practice, and the willingness to critically examine one's professional practice in order to improve or enhance it so that practitioners become empowered to make informed decisions about what to change and what not to change. Every education professional, to some degree, has probably displayed characteristics of a researcher. When you are experimenting with a new instructional strategy to help a struggling student, you are doing informal research. When you are reflecting on student learning outcomes and how you might approach a topic or unit differently next time, you are thinking like a researcher. Action research is just more formalized and is a systematic approach to reflective practice. Action research is a cyclical process. You will find many graphic representations in the literature that reflect this cyclical process, but you may find that it is best represented by Cher Hendricks in her book Improving Schools Through Action Research, which serves as the core text for this course. The cycle consists of 3 stages: reflect, act, and evaluate. It begins with teacher reflection. As teachers reflect, they consider their current instructional challenges to find the problem they will focus on. In the act stage, teachers learn about relevant strategies by reading about them in the published academic literature and professional publications, and from collaboration with colleagues. Teachers develop a plan for implementing the strategy they will use in the classroom. Then, in the evaluation stage, the teacher collects data to get feedback on the instructional strategy. This could be in the form of observations, questionnaires, or a range of student assessments. The teacher once again reflects as they analyze and interpret data and use that information to plan the next set of actions. Action research is different from traditional education research. In traditional research, the researcher is an outside observer. In action research, the researcher is also a participant in the research. Traditional research is often conducted with a random or paired sample of students. In action research, the population studied is the individuals in the practitioner's context, typically the students in their class. Finally, the goal of traditional research is to draw conclusions that are generalizable to a larger population. Traditional research produces generalizable knowledge. Practitioners engaging in action research are using their research results to inform changes or improvements in their own practice. They are producing practical knowledge. As you participate in today's discussions, please begin thinking about what your students need you to do to help make them better learners. In the next session, we'll talk more about reframing an authentic student need as an action research question. Thank you for your interest in action research. All right, at this point, we just want to pause for a moment and see if there are any questions that may have arisen from the video or for things that you've been thinking about, things that may have come up as you were preparing your materials for today, anything at all. If you have a question, please type an asterisk into the chat box. Mary, if you want to go ahead and open your microphone, please. Go ahead, Mary.
Hi, I find it interesting that the practitioner is also a participant in the research. How does that allow for non-bias within the research? And is it through the practitioner's reflection, or must the practitioner have someone else involved in the study to view results or conclusions from an outside perspective as well?
Great, Mary. That's a really good question, and not one that we addressed in that short video. The issue of bias in action research is a recurring one, and one that, from kind of my experience and perspective, is one that the researcher is always actively trying to manage. It is wildly challenging to be both the researcher and a participant, or sometimes the person leading the actual intervention that's being introduced. There are two measures that action research methodologies put in place to help address this issue of bias. And by bias, we mean the extent to which your own personal beliefs or attitudes toward what you're doing may actually influence the result. The first one of those things is the use of a reflective journal. If you are doing formal action research, and especially if you hope to publish the results of your action research, you would keep a very, I will say very detailed. You will keep a very detailed written reflective journal of your daily practice, especially when you're implementing an intervention that has to do with your research project. And in that reflection, you are going to try to notice and reflect on when you were using or acting on any kinds of biases or assumptions that you may have that you think may have influenced what you did over that particular day or over that particular lesson, so that the reflective log becomes a way to help you kind of keep your own biases in check. But there is a second piece to this as well, and that is the use of critical friends. In some kinds of action research where you may have more than one person, that critical friend may be the people in your action research group. But in some cases where you're doing individual action research, which is a completely valid and reliable, a valid form of action research, the use of the critical friend becomes extremely important. And that critical friend is someone who you may invite in to observe you while you're implementing your intervention. They may be someone who you just use to talk about the things that you've recorded in your reflective journal. So again, the two most commonly used ways to account for and recognize bias, the bias you may bring to your research project, are the use of reflective journals and critical friends. And we'll be talking. You read a little bit about reflective journals in the preparation for today. You'll actually be using one another as critical friends in this process as we begin developing the research projects, the proposals you're going to be working on. Lucy, we're going to go to you next. If you want to unmute your microphone. Go ahead, Lucy.
Hi, as reflecting on what you just said, I would hope that perhaps the action research will bring to light my biases. And I think that's one of the things that I maybe sometimes have a blind spot to. What things do I bring that are influencing what's going on that I'm not really acknowledging? And I would hope that one of the things that comes out of the cycle is, what are my biases and how do they color what I do?
Yeah, Lucy, I think that is exactly kind of the mindset that is so helpful to bring to the action research process. Being open to learning those kinds of things about yourself is probably, it's a very important aspect of thinking about how you actually improve your professional practice. So yes, absolutely. And again, two of the tools that you might use to do that are your reflective journals and the use of a critical friend in some way. Thank you very much. Does anyone else have a question at this point? Well, great. Thank you for those. We are going to move on to the case study that most of you had time to take a look at today. Again, I know that those of you who joined just recently may not have had a time to look at this, but if you want to pull out your learning log 1.2 and any other materials you might want to refer to at this point, in a typical online session, you will be discussing the things that you recorded in your learning log in pairs or in small groups, and then sharing that discussion with the whole group. But for today, because it is the first day, we're going to do a little bit of kind of whole group discussion rather than that paired or small group discussion. But again, as we prepare for next week, I've asked everyone to have a second device available that's Skype enabled and to send us your Skype ID information, and we will be using the small group and paired discussions next week. For today, though, again, let's consider the questions on Learning Log 1.2, which relate to the case study that you read called Request in the Secondary History Classroom. What we're going to do is we're going to go through the questions one at a time, and I am going to ask you to simply type an asterisk into the box if you would like to respond to the question. All right, so question number 1 from the learning log. What is the research question? Again, if you'll type an asterisk into the box and we will open your microphone, and you can open your microphone.
Carmen.
Carmen, thank you very much, Carmen. If you'd like to open your microphone.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I mean, I think the research question is pretty straightforward. At the end of the introduction, it just says, how does the introduction of the request reading technique affects reading comprehension of world history textbooks in a social studies classroom?
Great, Carmen. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that probably that what you will have found is that the research question actually appears in several different locations in this action research report. It also is embedded in the title. And as she said in the introduction, it's included in with a little bit more detail. Yeah, so this particular researcher was looking at the introduction of a reciprocal questioning technique and asking some very specific questions about how that affected reading comprehension of a social studies text for a group of high school students. All right, the second question in the learning log. How did the researcher investigate the problem? Again, anyone who's recorded anything, if you type an asterisk into the box, and we will open up your microphone. How did the researcher investigate the problem? Would anyone like to offer a response to this? Carmen, go ahead.
Okay, Carmen.
Sorry, I have to say that the same as the others, I probably studied. I had a really busy weekend that was planned in advance, but I found the whole thing, I found it very, very interesting, and I think is one of those things that as PE teachers we are already doing. So we are doing action research in our work all the time in the classroom and with peers, and so but I found it really, really interesting and very useful to know that we're doing the right thing. Going to the second question, how did the researcher investigate the problem? Well, obviously, studying the literature first to see what's out there and what what connections you can make, and then selecting a very small group of students. 14 students out of 20, I think it was, and introduced a few components. At the beginning, they studied the textbook. The teacher asked the questions, and the students had to answer. Then they moved to, you can see how everything is building up, and after that the students had to ask the question and the teacher had to answer, tapping into their prior knowledge as well. The third phase was moving to a higher questioning phase where the students had to answer questions only about what was in the book, and not tap into their prior knowledge or the teacher's prior knowledge. Sorry, I'm trying to to put everything together. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's great.
And by the end of it, you can see how the students start, they start asking questions, and they answer their questions using the knowledge from the textbook. And I think everybody can bring something to the table and everybody remembers something else, and by working together and listening to each other, they improve their knowledge and their comprehension.
Carmen, thank you very much. That was an amazing summary of about 5 or 6 pages of explanation there. And I just wanted to re-emphasize the steps that Carmen just described, because these, in fact, are the same steps that we are going to begin looking at in the next couple of sessions as we begin to think about what this process looks like. So this particular researcher began by identifying an intervention based on his experience with techniques for improving reading comprehension. He then did a literature review to find out more about what the literature had to say about the particular intervention that he had selected, recognizing that there were a whole range of interventions that he could have chosen from. He then selected a small group of students. He identified who the students were who were going to be involved in the Action Research Project. He introduced the technique to them, and over time gradually developed their skills in using the technique in a slightly more sophisticated way. And he used quizzes that came from a published textbook in order to establish a baseline, so a starting point, as well as to measure progress 3 additional times beyond the baseline in order to kind of see in order to measure and assess the change over time. So essentially, that was kind of the process that he used, and that process really will look very, very similar in other action research projects. The third question that I asked you to think about in this learning log was, what were the results? So what did the researcher find out? And Carmen, please don't be shy to put the asterisk in the box again. I think you spent a lot of time thinking about it. Sue, go ahead, Sue. Open your microphone, Sue.
Yeah, no, sorry. It just takes a little while to do it all. I'm feeling very inadequate at the moment. I hope I can say that. I think that Carmen's expressed it incredibly well. For me, I have to say, I found the results. I understood the wording of the results, but all of the statistics. It's been years since I've investigated anything or had to analyze it to that level, and I found the results from the statistical point of view quite confusing. But I thought that the fact that he wanted to actually, how can I say it? He saw that improvement, and that was inspiring him to move forward to look at other potential ways of different instructional techniques that he could choose in the future. Sort of was the best bit of it for me from that aspect. I have to say, though, I found it a little confusing, and I thought he did an incredible job of summing up what was something that was a little bit outside of my comfort zone, if I'm honest.
Yep.
So I'm hoping that someone on the course is going to be a math-related person who's going to be able to, explain and revise with me what some of these things are.
All right, Sue, thank you for that. Maybe just to respond to what you said just a little bit, and then we will open up for Lucy and Carmen. As part of this course, we are not going to go into any depth with the different kinds of statistical methods that you can use to analyze the data, because, in fact, every single research project will call for a slightly different approach. And so in the past, we have relied very heavily on people working collaboratively with colleagues who have that kind of background, that information. In its very simplest form, there may be some action research projects that have a baseline and then a secondary kind of post-intervention measure, and they're simply looking at change between 2 points. And in that particular case, the statistics become a little bit simpler. When you're looking at multiple growth points, it does become a little bit more complex. But I mean, I can assure you the statistics that this particular researcher has used are not particularly mysterious. They're actually pretty straightforward. And even if you haven't had this as part of your background before, if you were to take on an actual research project that required these statistics, I'm very confident that you would quickly master what they mean and how to use them. Lucy, if you'd like to open up your microphone, please. Go ahead, Lucy.
Hi. I wanted to comment on the stats because I hadn't read the article, but even just looking over now, as someone who's taught a lot of stats, inferential stats, it horrifies me when people use statistical tests without using randomization, without looking at any of the conditions, because how valid are these if the conditions for the testing aren't met, which they don't appear to be from what I've seen. So I'm very skeptical when people, non-statisticians, use statistical techniques that they've learned how to use in research, but they haven't actually learned and understood the conditions that need to be met for the processes and procedures to be valid.
Yeah.
So there needs to be a huge question mark over what they're reporting in terms of their significance tests. So although their numbers may be good, if they haven't met the conditions, there needs to be a caveat with this. And I haven't read to the end of the study to see if there is that caveat.
Yeah.
So, as a statistician, I would think that a lot of action research can't be quantified in such a neat way as we would like, and that a lot of things that I would think that the kinds of research that would be really useful would be the qualitative types of responses and analyzing response and coding responses and looking for kids' perception of their understanding and or other types of assessment rather than cold hard numbers.
Yeah. Lucy, thank you very much for that. And also thank you for volunteering the fact that you understand and might be able to help some people with their statistics questions if they arise, because it's always, I have to say, it's always wildly useful to have someone with your background on the course. A couple of the things that about what you said, this particular researcher did absolutely recognize and note in the write-up that this was a small, convenient sample, not a random sample, not a large sample, not a sample that would meet any kind of requirement if, in fact, he was trying to create generalizable knowledge. And again, one of the things I want to keep reminding us of is that whether we're using qualitative data or quantitative data, the point of action research and the extent to which these methodologies are valid is in the pursuit of developing practical knowledge. So for this particular researcher, what his data can tell him is that based on the way that he managed this intervention with this small number of students who he worked with, that their reading comprehension scores improved as reflected in their ability to take chapter tests and to score on chapter tests. He cannot, with this research, generalize and say that this is a method that he would advocate for other classes, for people who might use the method without the same fidelity to the process that he used. The action research always is necessarily limited to this kind of realm of practical knowledge and not generalizable knowledge. And again, even within that, even having said all that, it is, as Lucy pointed out, it's very, very important to use statistics in the way that they were designed to be and to recognize the limitations which may help shape the way that you interpret or analyze those statistical results. So Lucy, thank you very much. Carmen, if you'd like to open your microphone. Go ahead, Carmen.
I just wanted to say that I used to work in the National Sport Research Institute in Romania for a few years, so I've done some research for swimming, but obviously we had to get some data and analyze the data and write research papers. But like you said, I think the researcher said this is a small sample, and probably this links in with question number 4 on our log. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to jump over that.
That's fine. That's fine.
That this is not to be generalized, and more research is needed. But I think the action research actually is for a small group, for thinking about. I mean, we talk about differentiation in the classroom. I think is not, for one student, like we're trying to, we are perceiving differentiation for the moment. This is more for a group of students to see what's working for you. And I mean, my work for, class 1A might not work for class 1B. I think it's about you trying to discover what's working for each class, what kind of students you have there, how the students interact with you, how the students interact with each other, and trying to adapt. And as I said, it might work with one class, and you might have to adopt another methodology with another class.
Carmen, thank you very much. And we're going to go to Dale. So Dale, if you'd like to unmute your microphone, please. Go ahead, Dale.
You and Carmen covered the responses to Lucy that I was going to make about the small sample size and what the researcher says later on, so I won't go over that. But in terms of using action research, and he's using quantitative methods, and also he's using descriptive methods. So I'm wondering, is action research a mixed method sort of paradigm or approach?
It does use both qualitative and quantitative methods, and in fact, in this course, because I've kind of made the assumption that teachers would be more familiar with quantitative methods because they're so familiar with using assessments, that in this course we're actually going to spend more time looking at qualitative methods and coding than we are with quantitative methods, because I just assumed that would be kind of a bigger area that people would be looking to develop. But it is mixed. It is both qualitative and quantitative.
Okay, yeah, it's just that surprised me because, I thought action research as a qualitative methodology. All right, that clarifies it.
Thanks, Dale. All right, let's go on to question 4. And question 4 is, what topics did the researcher identify for further study? Again, if you'd like to respond to this question, please type an asterisk into the box and we will unmute your microphone. What topics did the researcher identify for further study? Does anyone want to respond to this question? Well, let me just kind of throw one thing in here and we'll go on to the next question, which more people may have found kind of more stimulating. In the data collection method, one of the things that he did talk about is investigating the use of more kind of advanced comprehension measurement instruments, which would actually help the researcher begin to kind of look at what was happening in greater detail. For example, to look at the relationship between decoding ability and fluency, rather than just looking generally at this bigger topic of comprehension. So again, one of the things he talked about doing was breaking down comprehension into smaller parts, kind of getting kind of more granularity in terms of identifying what the learning issue or the learning challenge might be for this particular group of students. We're going to move on to question 5. And for me, this is really a question that's asking you to think about what you read and think about how it connects to what you already know. So question 5 is, what did you learn about action research that you'll be able to use in your own process? And again, please type an asterisk into the box and we will open your microphone. Wendy, go ahead and unmute your microphone, please. Go ahead, Wendy.
Okay, so obviously the case study was targeted at an older age group than I currently teach, but I think it highlighted for me that the general principles of action research will work within an early childhood classroom just as well as a high school classroom. I also, reflecting on the case study, saw the importance of carrying out an appropriate literature review to see what common consensus there is about the particular subject being explored. I also found that the starting point for defining an action research project, it comes from the problem faced or the issue to be addressed. And it also highlighted the importance of clear data collection and what causes those anomalies. So even though I found the case study quite challenging, I was able to draw quite a lot from it.
Wendy, thank you very much. Carmen, go ahead and unmute your microphone, please.
What I liked about it, and again, I think this is happening a lot in sport and PE, students interacting with each other and asking each other's question and learning from each other. Here it says that development and clarification of question with peers require students to interact with, not just read the text. And I think we're losing that ability of interacting with each other in a way nowadays, and it's very important. And you can draw more knowledge from other people than just reading a text.
Carmen, great, thank you for that. One of the other things that kind of came out of the writing was this idea that if you have a methodology that does involve this kind of social aspect of learning, this kind of peer-to-peer learning, that the use of interviews or student surveys would have been another way to actually collect data so that you didn't have just data from a single source. And again, as we go through the course, we're going to talk about the importance of data triangulation, which may, from time to time, involve both the use of qualitative and quantitative data. Lucy, if you want to go ahead and unmute your microphone, please. Go ahead, Lucy.
Yes, I was thinking that it formalizes stuff I know I do, but will make it more useful. I think I'll often identify a problem and think about how to handle it and sort of integrate it into what I'm doing without actually following up and doing a formal evaluation of what I've done. And I'm hoping that this will just give me more structure to what I do, and that this course will force me to do those things. I've been fortunate to work with student teachers, and I chose to do these things because I know it will force me to formally reflect in a meaningful way. Because I know a lot of the time we're so busy that unless something goes terribly wrong, I don't stop everything and go, wait, let me dissect this completely. So it's giving me a structured way to do what I'm already doing, but in a more meaningful way, and I'm sort of excited to do some of that. The other part was, I feel like the question, the article didn't really give any history to that question. In terms of, I would anticipate that coming up with the research question in a way that you can actually act on it takes quite a lot of work. Identifying the problem, thinking through, well, what is the specific problem? How do I word this? What is the most important thing to come out of it? Because there are 56 other things I could do to help. How do I target this one? What do I try? And then the follow-up part. So I feel like there are so many things to focus on. It's made me think, how do I structure that question and come up with that question so that it's meaningful and does what I want it to do.
Lucy, thank you for that. I'm hoping that the task that you will be getting in tomorrow's email for session 2 might actually begin to kind of generate some of that kind of thinking about the problem that you will kind of focus on as kind of the context for your participation in the rest of the course. It is one of the most difficult aspects of action research, and it's one of the most important part, framing the question. And again, sometimes, as you were saying, it's not just making sure that you have an important and a real problem, but that you are framing it in a way that what you learn from it, you can actually use in your practice again. And you're not just learning, you're not just getting information and data, you're actually getting data that helps you inform how you might improve that work with that particular group of students. So really great. Thank you for that observation. We're going to go on to question 6 now. And this is a pretty open-ended one. What questions do you have as a result of reading the case study? The person who did this piece of research and wrote the case study, of course, had a set of questions that he talked about in the conclusion, things that he might do next. And action research is a cyclical process. And interestingly, I think that not only can you learn things by looking at your own research, but you can also learn things and develop questions based on other people's research. So we're going to start with Dale. Dale, if you'd like to unmute your microphone, please. Go ahead, Dale.
One is more a comment on the previous question that could lead into question 6, and that is what I'm now seeing as a result of reading the case study or skimming it, is how legitimate this methodology actually is. Because, you know, in my mind, and maybe out there, because action research is relatively new compared to some of the other methodologies like case study, phenomenological research, any of those other branches, it is rather new, and it does look at a smaller population, and it's not necessarily generalizable. So you often wonder, well, how valid is this research? But I see in his results or summary, he came up with at least 6 different sort of recommendations or ways of thinking in order to implement these to change his practice, to improve his practice, and I think that in and of itself is really valid. So I'm just quite impressed with, you know, the validity of it by his own sort of small research sample and study. Okay. That's all.
Thank you for that. And I just wanted to say that your observation that this is a relatively new methodology, I'm assuming that most people in the group know that. And thank you for emphasizing that. I mean, action research is a relatively new methodology. It has kind of a couple of kind of hubs of expertise around the world, and Bath University is certainly one of those. Action research is a whole group of research methodologies, and there are different methodologies of action research that have been specially adapted for use in the health professions. There's a whole group of action research methodologies that have been adapted for use in community development. And the most recent area where action research has been adapted for use has been in schools and in educational settings. And I will say that action research began as a social research methodology to better understand social interactions and the effects of social interventions. And in a lot of ways, if you think about education as a social process, it becomes really clear how these methodologies evolved to be used in schools as well as in health settings and in community settings. So again, Dale, thank you for that. The final question in this series is, what topics did the researcher identify? Actually, we already did that question. Our final thing I want to just do is I wondered if you had anything else that you wanted to add to anything that anyone has said today, anything that you read, anything that you looked at, just as a way of kind of bringing the session to a close. So again, if you have anything else you'd like to ask or share, if you would just type an asterisk into the chat box, please. Okay, so in closing this session, I do want to first note that we are finishing at about 4:45. The way that we have structured these sessions, we have structured them so that we never go beyond 5 o'clock. And from time to time, we may finish a little bit early. The duration of the sessions as we go forward will depend entirely on the level of discussion that we have following the tasks that I give you. So there may be weeks when we have loads and loads of discussion, and there may be weeks where perhaps we're missing a couple of people, and the discussions are rich, but they don't take as much time. So again, we'll always endeavor to finish by 5 o'clock, and the length of the session will just depend on how much we have to talk about. Just in closing today, I did want to remind you that next week we're going to ask you to bring a second device, either an iPhone or an iPad, and that we're going to ask you to share your Skype ID with us before the next session. Tomorrow, in your email, you will receive the materials for session 2, and in fact, every week, the day after the session, you'll receive the materials for the following week in order to kind of give you 6 days and the weekend to work on that next set of materials. We will also send you the joining directions, the GoToMeeting joining directions for session. We'll send you a link to the recording of session 1 tomorrow, and we'll send you the invitation to join the next GoToMeeting next Monday, the day before the next session. So again, I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and we will look forward to seeing you next week for session 2 of Getting Started with Action Research. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.